backwards down the stairs, trying to get higher. How can I get anywhere? Walking backwards down the stairs, watching life elude me, slipping through my grasp. Oh, I know the truth at last, but to reach the top I've got to stop from walking backwards down the stairs, trying to get higher. How can I get anywhere? Walking backwards down the stairs.
Last Friday night, one of our coast-to-coast listeners called me during open lines and said, George, did you know that a Spanish company has the rights now to count our ballots for our presidential election? I said, no, really? I'm going to check into it. So I said, we've got to talk to Bev Harris. Bev Harris, of course, wrote the book, Black Box Voting, Ballot Tampering in the 21st Century. We got to find out. Bev, welcome back. How are you?
Well, it's always good to be back, and this is a good, important subject to talk about. I'm glad you're having me on.
So I say again, really? A Spanish company counting American votes for the November election? Is this true?
Well, it's a tad more complex, but not much. The Spanish company, picture it like this. The Academy Awards, let's suppose they contract out the counting of the votes to some wonderful accounting firm, but then say to the accounting firm, what you're going to do is you're going to give the sealed envelope to a Spanish company. And the Spanish company will then tell us all who won.
Okay.
So technically, no, it's not yet, but it plans to. It's not yet counting the votes, but it's receiving the results, and it's announcing the results before the results get announced anywhere else.
How bizarre.
So what that does is it should transfer all attention to the chain of custody. Just as if it was the Academy Awards and they were passing this envelope. It's like, well, did anyone open the envelope? And whose hands did the envelopes go into? And are those the real results coming out of the envelope? So what's happening this November is this company is going to be producing the results or announcing the results exclusively for now not just 900 locations in the U.S., but about 1,200.
It's growing.
Yes. And to put that in context, there's about 3,000 locations total. So it will be approaching half of all the locations in the U.S., including some of the very large locations.
Absolutely bizarre. Now, is there a possibility of vote tampering because of this?
Oh, certainly, because there's absolutely no way. Here's how it works. The votes go into these electronic voting machines, which are counted by computer. That's a problem in and of itself.
Right, and we've talked about that. That's right.
Right. But that's not the Spanish company yet. They plan to be the company in the next election that handles both sides of the equation. But so the votes go into the electronic voting machine, and then instead of being published locally, they go to Tampa, Florida, to a subsidiary owned by a company in Spain. And so what you'll see, let's suppose you live in Contra Costa County, California, and you go to the Contra Costa County website to see what your results are in your election. That website, while it looks like it's Contra Costa County, is actually in Tampa, and it's owned by this company in Spain now. And it's hosted, it never even, bottom line is the results come out of the voting machines, go straight to Tampa electronically, and the websites on which you see the results are actually coming out of Tampa, not coming out of your county. So absolutely, they are a middleman in the process. And whatever they say, the first numbers out of the gate are coming from this outfit in Tampa owned by this outfit in Spain.
Now, the Internet is reporting, and it's the Internet, and that's why I want to ask you to qualify this, that Hungarian-American billionaire George Soros might be involved in this Spanish company, might have an ownership position. Do we know anything about that?
Yeah, that's one of the, no, it doesn't, there's nothing that substantiates that. And here's what concerns me about this. I actually broke the story about the significance of this Spanish company and exactly what it has in mind. Very shortly afterward, I started seeing derivatives of the story that were actually incorrect, like Obama owns the company, or an Obama supporter owns the company, or George Soros owns the company. Then the next thing that happens was Snopes.com, which debunks Internet stories that are incorrect, starts saying, well, this story about the Spanish company is incorrect. Well, yes, because it started being put all over the place in a format that was where the facts were incorrect. But what that did, then anytime it went to a major news network or to a legislator and people would be concerned about it, they would go, oh, well, it's been debunked. Well, no, it actually hasn't been debunked. This company is smack dab in the middle. And the only thing that's actually been debunked is who owns it. And I'm sure you'll take comfort from this. We actually don't know who owns it.
Oh, great. I do. I'm
private.
So comfortable with that now, Bev. Thank you. So what we do know for sure is that a Tampa-based corporation that was doing some of the vote processing has been purchased by a Spanish company, right?
And has expanded, correct.
And has expanded
into doing about half of the reporting of the votes in the United States. And also the actual counting itself of the overseas and military votes.
And the Spanish company is owned by people we have no idea who.
Right. It's private.
Private company. So we have no idea who they are. Unbelievable.
It could be anybody.
Now,
and this is not just a problem in America. This is a global situation. This same company is doing exactly the same thing in many, many other countries. So this is not something that's Republicans are trying to do something to the Democrats.
Right, or vice versa.
This is global.
Well, now, Bev, let me ask you this. What would happen, and you tell me if this is even conceivable, if somebody in this company, owners that we have no idea who they are, says, I want candidate A over candidate B to become the president of the United States, and we are counting the votes for 26 states, and you say that's growing now, so it's probably higher now. We're counting the votes for that, and I'm going to ensure that the candidate I like will win this election. Whether he wins it, right or wrong, I'm going to make sure he wins it. Is that conceivable? Can they do that?
They could do that, although because they don't control the actual machines yet, although they intend to, it could be caught. It would take some work, but it could be caught in the following way. And this is actually what I recommend doing right now. You can go on election night, and any citizen can go and take pictures of the actual, they look like a cash register tape that comes out of each voting machine, which contains the results from that voting machine. Nobody ever does, and nobody ever compares that with what they announce. And guess what? When you do compare it, it sometimes doesn't match at all.
We need a major accounting firm to do some reconciliation here.
Yes, and actually, I think one of the best safeguards is for them to know that various random people in places they have no idea where, just randomly and on their own initiative, are going around taking pictures of those tapes. Because that would make it very risky indeed. All they'd need to do is get caught once or twice, and it would all be over.
And Bev, we've talked over the years about the black box voting and the problems that have been created with that. This is now another element that I didn't anticipate a few years ago.
Right. There's a couple new elements. And, of course, what this company wants to do is to take us to Internet voting and control the Internet voting. And at that point, it's game over because they will control every phase of the input and output. And it's completely privatized, and we won't be able to see anything.
Well, and we saw what happened today when hackers attacked GoDaddy. They shut down so many of their websites. What would happen if on Election Day hackers did the same thing?
Yes, but, that's also something that's what I would like your listeners to understand is it's the insider that's the bigger risk than the hacker. The hacker can demonstrate that it's a problem, but you see, you cannot secure this system from its own administration. And so the real risk in election fraud is now and has always been the person with inside access. And what this company is doing is centralizing the level of control over elections with insiders to an unprecedented degree. It's a structural problem that is extremely dangerous. And literally, when this happens, what they've done is they've put themselves in position so that the government can choose itself.
Well,
and it is
you're
no
right,
longer
Bev.
at that point a democratic system at all.
Well, and let's point out that this Spanish company could be impeccably clean. But you know what? Who knows?
And who knows who these technicians? Do you know that these companies I see advertisements on online job recruitment sites. We need a guy to come in and run our server. We don't. It's
oh my gosh.
What we have to just simplify. We have to not get into a bunch of cryptography and gobbledygook. It is a structural problem when you put one or a few people in charge of the votes of the free world.
We are 2 months to our presidential election. Is Congress going to step in and say something about this story that you've been writing about, that we're talking about tonight?
No, and actually, the structure of the U.S., and I actually do agree with this, each state controls the elections, not the federal government. And so the federal government can't do a lot about it. And the states, they're just not going to. They're actually joining the march. And I have to say this is, if we ever get to the point where we accept the idea that the public completely loses control over any authentication of its own vote, then it's really done. Right now, it is true. We cannot authenticate our vote. The system isn't democratic because if the government chooses, they can choose themselves and just push us out of the process. But what we have going in our favor is that we don't accept this. And we kind of don't know about the, fakeness of our own elections. But as people come to realize that they don't accept it, we can't ever come to accept it, or then it really is all over.
Do we know if the states with the highest electoral votes are part of the Spanish system now?
Oh, yes, they are. Yeah.
They are.
Florida, California, yeah. It's big,
New York.
Large metro areas. In Florida, it's the big areas: Palm Beach County, Broward County, Miami-Dade, Sarasota. It's the big ones.
This is unbelievable.
Yes.
So
yeah, it's not what we think. The
I'm
world
actually
is not what we think anymore.
No, it really isn't. So come election night, regardless of who wins, are you going to be suspect because of all of this?
Am I going to be suspected, or am I going to be suspicious?
Are you going to be suspicious? Are you going to be suspect of the election?
Oh, I have absolutely no reason to believe that it has any validity, and nor should anyone else, because this country is not designed to be a trust-based system. In fact, it was founded on distrust, and it was founded on the idea that people must be able to, mistrust and go and check it out and see for themselves. The minute they started telling us we have no right to check out and find out what the votes are, then we should not trust the result. We should simply, laugh. That's probably the healthiest thing, is to just tell them it's preposterous.
Can anybody get to this? Can we get to this Spanish company over the next month to find out who owns it, or will they never tell us?
Well, it wouldn't matter because, the guy who runs the server on that particular night, it's like we'll never get to it. It's like running on a hamster wheel where you're constantly chasing it, and all they do is they move it one more
around and around. Bev, stay with us. Yeah. We're going to take phone calls with you when we come back. Truly an unbelievable story, and we've got it for you here on Coast to Coast AM. I'm George Norrie. Back in a moment with your calls, and Bev Harris on Coast to Coast AM. Well, Coast Insiders, we've got a treat for you Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Pacific time. That's right, our video audio chat. That means you see me, I see you. You hear me, I hear you. We can do that. Just become a Coast Insider for 15 cents a day. Simply go to coasttocoastam.com. We're going to come back in a moment. We'll take phone calls with Bev Harris as we talk about this Truly bizarre story about a Spanish company counting American votes overseas. Unbelievable. And welcome back to Coast. Bev Harris with us. We're going to take your calls. Bev, before we go to calls, do you want to add anything more to this strange story?
Well, I'm going to add a new wrinkle that we are just now breaking. To add, this is sad. One of the areas that we've been fighting for in order to let the public authenticate the election is to be able to look at the ballots, as they did in Florida after 2000. And in many states have started to pass laws saying the public can never look at the paper ballots under any circumstances. Black Box Voting was a fiscal sponsor of a lawsuit in Colorado, which went all the way to the Colorado Supreme Court, and they finally admitted, yes, the public can look at the ballots after the election. And guess what we found? The first 3,000 ballots that were examined, there were identifiers led directly back to the voter ID number. They have been downloading databases of how we vote, not just in Colorado, but also in Washington State and Indiana, and those are just the states we've found so far.
Already. Unbelievable.
Yes.
Good job, though. Let's go to the phones.
It's what it is.
Phyllis in Aurora, Colorado, speaking of the state. There you go, Phyllis. You're up.
Yes. Would it help if everybody just did their mail-in ballots? I do that anyway, but should everybody do that?
Well, the thing I just mentioned in Colorado is actually only with the mail-in ballots. What they're doing with mail-in ballots, and you can see this if you have two people in the same household that get the mail-in ballot, they are putting a unique identifier on each ballot. Usually it's in the form of a barcode, sometimes a little dot matrix box.
Mm-hmm.
And what they are doing then, the voting machines are capturing a photograph and translating the barcode that tells who you are and the votes into a government-sponsored database. So I refuse to vote by mail. It's actually worse than going to the polls, and it's also counted by voting machines and has all the same problems in addition to the problem that they can download how you vote, and they are downloading how you vote. I think that I've been saying since 2009 that I think they are doing this for the following reasons. I've seen these unique identifiers. But we were actually able, with the first 3,000 ballots that we saw, to see exactly who voted them.
Is this company eventually going to try to take over counting election results in Iran and wherever they're done?
They're already working on this. They're announcing a new country every couple of weeks that they've taken over. And they have a unit called CITL USA, which their explicit goal is to take over, the start-to-finish process in the U.S. But even if we unseat this Spanish company, it'll be another one, you see, because the root cause of this is power players who believe they need to be able to have their thumb on legislation.
I wonder if there's a 666 anywhere in this story, Bev.
Well, I can tell you there's probably a Wall Street somewhere in there.
Yeah. Okay, next up, driving through Pennsylvania, first-time caller, Dirk is with us. Hey, Dirk, thanks for calling.
Hi. First off, I'd like to say I really appreciate the depth and breadth of your show, George. And this topic tonight is something that I've been watching for a couple of years. Bev is dead straight on. My background is I have degrees in international management, statistics, and I do a lot of database work, build information systems. Everything she says is correct. And I also do a lot of poll watching, and I work canvas boards, and I've also done some other things. My question is basically this. Bev mentioned some very important words, and there's a triangulation concept here: international, electronic, privacy control, and validation. We put all these things together. She is very much, I think, very close to something here that I think needs to be elevated in our national attention. This is a great show. My question is this: is there going to be a problem because the number of states that are in this company, in terms of what their access is to, are they predominantly electronic in their nature? And she's right about the paper voting is an issue as well. How can we protect against this? Because anything that gets done here, there's international coverage. There's the sovereignty thing. You won't be able to track this down. There are certain things from a sovereign security standpoint that as a nation we should not let out of our borders. One of them would be the protection of our freedoms, i.e. through the voting process.
Right.
And we need to figure out, how does this happen?
And how do you take care of it, Bev? I mean, realistically, I don't think there's anything you really can do.
You know, the Europe is getting ahead of us on this, and partly because Europe has, you know, the Chaos Computer Club, some of the WikiLeaks and so forth are coming out of there, and they're a little bit more astute in terms of understanding what the heck we're doing here. So in Germany in 2009, they ruled that this kind of system where it conceals the counting and the reporting process from the public is unconstitutional and a human rights violation. They banned it outright, and they ditched all their electronic voting in 90 days. Wham! It's gone. Ireland has followed suit. They couldn't even give their electronic voting machines away for entertainment to be used in pubs. They finally had to just dispose of them. And the Netherlands has followed suit. So, you know, what we have to do is recognize what the core problem is. The core problem is not, you know, what kind of cryptography use or what party's in power. The core problem is the public must be able to see and authenticate all essential steps of the election, period. Without that, you got nothing.
I miss the old days, Bev, when Walter Cronkite would say, let's go to our tote board, and there'd be a guy there on a ladder moving the numbers around.
You know, and you know what? That was great TV.
It was great TV, and it took a little while to find out who won. Now we're in this, we live in this era of instant gratification. We want to know who won immediately. The polls close at 7 o'clock in a state. We want to know at 7:01 who won that state. We need to sit back.
Part of that, too, though, part of that is because they don't want anyone questioning it. Every minute that we don't know, people start looking at the data and people start looking at the evidence. Some of this, they want that foregone conclusion so that nobody questions it and we move along.
Let's go to Royce in Rochester, New York. Welcome to the program, Royce. Go ahead.
Hi, George.
Hi.
I'm a paid election inspector for the upcoming elections.
Okay.
I've been trained, and one of the things we're supposed to be able to do is allow any person that identifies himself as a poll watcher to view the tapes that come out of each machine at the end of the night. And each tape has to be signed by a Republican and a Democrat, and they're duplicate tapes. One, the chair takes right to the election bureau. The other is secreted into the machine. Well, I would like to see Coast to Coast try and set up a poll election inspection verification service. Bev said that the people should take a picture on their cell phone and send that in, and then independently you could, by using your service at Coast to Coast, verify things. Does that make any sense to you, George?
We can pass it on to Lex, the webmaster, who will probably be so inundated, Royce, we'll never see him again. But, Bev, comment on this.
That's the only way to do it.
That is the kind of thing. And here's the thing. It doesn't even need to be. In fact, it's almost better if it's not organized because then it can't be infiltrated. What you want to do is get the word out to people to just get out of their armchair and go take a picture of that thing and then go online to the website from SOE Software, which is very easy to find. They just go to their county and it'll say, here's our results, which are coming from Tampa, and just see if it's even the same. And I have to tell you, I have even myself always expected the numbers to match. And I am stunned at how often they don't match. I looked at the SOE results, and I captured them every 30 minutes from Dallas in 2008. And do you know that they were going down? That's not possible, by the way.
But, I was going to say,
it would have less votes later on than it had earlier.
Why don't they match? Is it fraud?
Exactly. Yeah. And see, this is right now, before this company gets control of the input and the output, because they don't have control of the input, so this is possible. It just takes extra work. This is the great unknown for them. They have no idea how many people will be out there checking, and they're just counting on the fact that, like all the other elections, nobody ever compares it. But if we get people, just random people, get a bee in their bonnet and go compare it and then blow the whistle every time it doesn't match. That is very dangerous for a company if they want to middleman themselves into controlling an election.
Well, Bev, Royce wants us to be the clearinghouse for some of these pictures, but I can't handle 5 million
you know what?
pictures.
Actually, our site is set up for that. Blackboxvoting.org has self-upload site where you can upload pictures for every county in the United States. When you go to blackboxvoting.org, there's a red button right in the middle of the front that says go to your state, and it's quite self-explanatory. You just sign in and upload the tape, and so you don't need to upload it if it matches, but if you've got one that doesn't match, then you upload it, and then people start to pay attention. And do you know, I went to Kentucky in an election in 2006, and every single tape from every single voting machine did not match in this one county.
How can this be?
That tells you a lot, doesn't it?
It does. Let's go to Leander, Texas. Brian's with us on Coast to Coast. Hey, Brian, go ahead.
Hi, George. Hi, Bev.
Hi.
I work for a voting system manufacturer. I'm actually an architect, so we design voting systems, and I work with Seidel all the time. And first of all, let me say I really appreciate what you do, Bev. I read your blog all the time and read your articles. And I do, though, question what you're saying about Seidel. I am very familiar with those systems, and I don't see them counting votes overseas. What I see them doing is reporting those vote tally results that are counted by certified election systems. Could you comment on that?
That's what I said. But the results are going down to Tampa and being announced directly out of Tampa before they're being announced publicly by the county.
That's correct. Yeah, the counties where they get counted at the county level by certified systems, and then the county certifies those results and pass them on to SOE, which then posts them on the internet.
No. You've got the time frame out. The county passes them to SOE long before they ever certify them. In fact, they have up to 10 days in many cases, and certainly 7 days in almost all cases, to tweak the results to make sure they match SOE.
Right, they're
They
preliminary
don't certify
results.
right away. So SOE puts them out first. In fact, SOE is putting them out in live time, and I actually like the format.
Explain SOE, Bev. Okay.
SOE is the company that is owned by Seidel.
All right, there was the one in Tampa that they bought.
Yeah, Seidel is an internet voting company. They count military and overseas votes in several states now, and they're trying to count the general election. In fact, they're working very hard to try to get their internet voting system to count the general election. That's not going to happen by November, but that's a down the road thing. But then they bought this firm called SOE Software. So what happens in terms of timing is the results go first to SOE in Tampa. They're published, and then over the course of the next 5 days, then the county certifies and publishes what they call the certified results. So it goes to the middleman first, and the problem is if you've got a stinker in the county, they can adjust that as needed to make sure it matches.
But it's still owned by the Spanish company.
The voting machines are not.
No, but SOE is.
Yes, SOE is. So the voting machines right now, and I would guess that the gentleman who called is probably working for ES&S. Now, that's the other side of the equation. A company called Election Systems and Software is either directly counting or is doing the tech support for the old Diebold system in about two-thirds of locations in the United States. And that company has a strategic alliance with Seidel. It's fairly close, as the fellow mentioned. They do work closely with them. But because ES&S is still a separate system, and as the other gentleman who called in said, there's still ways to deal with this, and that is to get off of our keisters on election night and go photograph those poll tapes. Because if the middleman is changing things, if this Seidel-owned SOE is changing things, they can be caught if people do that. And you wouldn't have to catch every single situation. All you'd have to catch is some before everybody would say, what the heck is going on? And
what you would say is you would go to, your election commission maybe the next day and say, look.
Oh, I'd go directly to the media and get on YouTube big time. Because actually social media and the Internet is with photographic evidence is a better bet than even conventional media at this time. We saw that in some of the primaries where they, like in Iowa, it was a citizen who photographed the results in a city who found out that Santorum won, not Romney.
How would you explain the difference if the tickers, if the sheets of paper were different? How does that happen?
Oh, they always come up with some nonsensical thing, but usually it really is almost laughable, and they'll come up with so the first thing is to get that it's different and prove that it's different, and the next part is to propagate that information out, because Yeah, the information coming out of the voting machines has to match what comes out of SOE if it's legitimate.
It should, yeah.
Because it's electronic. It's not.
It
like
should
you're
be
in
the
there
same.
keying
It's
in
like
information.
balancing your checkbook with your bank statement, right?
Right. It has to match exactly to the vote.
Let's go to Huber Heights, Ohio. Tony's with us east of the Rockies. Hey, Tony, let's get you in here.
All right. Hey, George. Hi. Hi, Bev. How are you tonight?
Hi there, Tony.
All right. Well, I have a quick question. I have a question about with the one who owns this Spanish company. Could it be part of the Illuminati?
Who knows? Yeah, who knows? I mean, we don't know the ownership, so
and
it
even if we
could
do,
be anybody.
If we find the ownership, this has kind of been follow the bouncing ball for a while with some of the voting companies. And when we find that they transfer ownership, there's one big company that has transferred ownership. You know, it was owned in Ireland, and then they moved to Venezuela, and now it's owned. Then it went to Canada. You know, so if you find out it's a stinker that owns it, then they just move to a different place. Some of these companies, by the way, have been based in Cayman Islands, Bermuda, you know, some of the secrecy havens. So
here's the other thing, Bev, as you mentioned. The Internet is just loaded with rumors. How do we know what's right, what isn't?
And you know what? Don't waste your time on it. That's what I finally learned after tracking this stuff down. It's like, you know what? We have to address the structural issue and say, hey, until we regain our ability as the general public to authenticate every essential stage of our election, we don't care who owns it. Get out of our way.
All right. What we do know is a Spanish company now owns a company based in Tampa that will count the votes for at least 26 states. Is that accurate?
We'll report the votes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Let's go to Jersey City, New Jersey. Gene, we may squeeze you in. I hope. Go ahead, Gene.
Quick, George. I'm going to vote. If God lets me, I'm going to vote. I'm not going to be discouraged because so much rotten stuff is going on right within the country. But why the hell is the votes going out of the country? But I will vote anyway because this may be just another type of scaring people out of voting. But I agree with what George was saying. I'm so afraid that something is really going to happen. I think it's going to be something crazy and big because this has gotten to be too nuts.
It is. The best part about all this, Bev, you know about it. I know about it. Millions of other people are beginning to know about it.
Right.
They can't hide this stuff.
That's where we're at now. Yeah, we're at the communication stage now. We have to get to the tipping point in terms of getting people to understand what the problem is. And then you're going to start seeing some action then. Right now, people don't really understand that, hey, some of this stuff can be completely fake, and we have absolutely no way of knowing. The best thing in the world is to go down and try and authenticate anything, and I guarantee you will run smack into a brick wall and go, what the heck is going on?
Well, maybe mainstream will jump on this. Maybe mainstream will start doing some stories on this before it's too late. Bev, give us your website.
blackboxvoting.org. And, it's kind of a self-serve. You can go on and post comments, and you can go on and post documents and photos and so forth. And it has a lot of information. There's a toolkit 2008, Steps to Protect the Election. I haven't even updated it because absolutely nothing has changed since 2000.
Super. Bev, always good to talk with you. We'll talk to you as we get close to Election Day again, okay?
Sure, great.
Bev Harris, Black Box Voting.